Justin Trudeau has finally come clean on mass immigration. Last night, Trudeau published a 6.5-minute video to his official YouTube page in which he tries to explain away his decisions over the irreversible path he put our country on when it comes to mass immigration. He also deflects blame for mass immigration to everyone but himself and his Liberal government colleagues. How convenient. Of course, Justin Trudeau leaves out quite a lot in this video. So in this episode of Ray Showed, we are going to go line by line over this mass immigration video and tell you what Justin Trudeau is not telling you. Tell you the truth instead of the Liberal government spin that he is now putting on mass immigration. Before we do, however, be sure to drop a like in this video. Help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel. And the comment question for the episode is this: why is the Liberal government making this U-turn on immigration now? Let me know your answer in the comments below, and let's get into it. All right, so this video that Justin Trudeau published yesterday, Why Canada's Changing Its Immigration System, is currently the #1 trending video on YouTube. And at no point in this video does Justin Trudeau assume any personal blame for this decision, despite, of course, spearheading the most radical immigration policies ever seen in Canada. He also doesn't mention the fact that mass immigration has had significant cultural and social cohesion issues. Canada's national cohesion has fallen apart over immigration. People have soured on immigration because of the rate that new people have entered this country. How about the rise in violent crime, which also happens to coincide with Canada's open border? The Canadian government has let in terrorists, and deadly attacks have been foiled by the United States intelligence services, not, of course, Canada's intelligence. How about the rise in foreign interference, Indian murder gangs in our streets, drug trafficking, and super labs being discovered? Mass immigration is the source of these issues in this country as well. But we're not at the stage in which our politicians are willing to talk about that when it comes to immigration. We want to just keep pretending that it's all about the economy and housing. It's not. But nonetheless, Justin Trudeau's government is announcing a major U-turn on immigration because, let's just be honest about one more thing, if Justin Trudeau is making this video now and making this decision right now, mass immigration is clearly the most important issue on the minds of voters. And we're getting close to an election. Let's watch this video.
In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn.
It was not even a year ago that Justin Trudeau rolled out his immigration minister, Mark Miller, to announce Canada's largest immigration intake in our history. To announce that the country would be taking over 500,000 permanent residents each year. It was less than a year ago that Justin Trudeau was telling us that we had a labor shortage in this country, that immigration is good, that immigration has nothing to do with housing, with unemployment, with low wages. So all of a sudden, the Trudeau Liberals have come to the realization that this policy, this irreversible policy that they have subjected on all of us, is actually really bad. And we need to completely shut it down. So for all those years, the only person talking about this at a political level was Maxime Bernier of the PPC. That the Conservatives would never say the words, "We need to reduce immigration," until just about a few months ago. I guess you could call this vindication for Bernier and the PPC crowd. They were right on this issue. And the political establishment was completely wrong. And have been wrong for very long. This is not just Justin Trudeau's problem. Stephen Harper also had high levels of immigration as well.
There are two kinds of immigration in Canada. The one you probably think of most is permanent immigration, like when families come to Canada to settle and call it home. Every year, the government determines the right number of permanent residents that we want to admit. That's how it's been done for decades. But a plan that only talks about permanent immigration misses the other pathway, temporary immigration. Temporary residents are people who come to Canada for a limited time, like international students, temporary workers, and so on. They come to work a job or go to school. When the job is done or when they finish their degree, most return home. Some apply to stay as permanent residents, but most return home.
That is complete BS from Justin Trudeau, and I'll tell you why. In 2018, the federal government launched a marketing scheme telling prospective international students that they could come to Canada to study, work, explore, and stay. Study, work, explore, and stay. They basically told international students that they should apply to study in Canada and then to stay at the end. Not only that, but this program, this Study, Work, Explore, Stay program by Immigrations, Citizenship, and Refugees Canada also encouraged you to bring your spouse with you as an international student so both of you can get work permits and both of you can eventually stay. They even made a video about this back in 2018. Well, you know what else just happened to occur in 2018 after the federal government rolled out this Study, Explore, Work, Stay marketing scheme? Well, wouldn't you just know it? International student visas spiked. The Trudeau Liberals wanted to balloon Canada's population well before the pandemic. This was a plan in place for many years. This was not just a pandemic-led labor shortage, as he will soon tell us.
But after the pandemic, our economy came roaring back quickly. We needed a lot of workers fast. Temporary foreign workers became such a significant part of our workforce that it'd be a mistake not to include them when we plan our immigration levels.
Again, complete nonsense from the federal Liberal government. Since 2018, for advanced jobs, there has not been a labor shortage in this country. There has never been a situation in which jobs requiring a university degree, a bachelor's degree, have outpaced the number of available workers in this country. And when it comes to entry-level jobs, jobs that young Canadians and seniors or disabled Canadians would want to work at, the argument that we hear from lobbyists, people at the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, for example, is that Canadians are just lazy. They don't want to work those jobs. Well, that's also not true. When you have an endless supply of labor entering into this country willing to work for extremely small wages, there's no pressure to increase wages. And Canadians have higher standards for wages than foreigners will. These entry-level jobs have not raised wages to compensate for the increased cost of living in this country. The labor shortage myth is exactly that, a myth.
Like I said, immigration is based on demand. When we set our targets, we look at every province and territory. We ask the premiers, what are the gaps in your workforce? Is your population growing or getting older? We field calls from businesses, CEOs, economic experts, all sharing their thoughts on where we should set our targets.
We've had a chronic shortage of labor for the last decade. It is the #1 issue of all manufacturers across Canada.
Okay, so you show a manufacturing lobbyist, and then you show Doug Ford. Surely Doug Ford was not being influenced by corporate lobbyists as well, who want the endless supply of cheap labor.
Ontario is facing a generational labor shortage. 380,000 jobs are going unfilled.
So everybody but you, right, Justin Trudeau? You blame everyone else for telling you that Canada should increase its population by millions of people each year, far outpacing available supply, available housing supply, of job supply, of even food supply.
Every sector has different wants and needs when it comes to immigration. But after the pandemic, they all came to us with the same message. After 2 years with closed borders, we need more people, more workers, fast. So we brought in more workers. It was the right choice.
It was the wrong choice.
It worked.
It failed.
Our economy grew. Restaurants and stores reopened. Businesses kept running. But most importantly, in spite of lots of economists' predictions, we avoided the worst-case scenario, a recession.
The argument that we hear from open borders extremists to justify their irreversible decisions. See, we're going to flood the border, but look, our GDP is growing, our economy is growing. We avoided a recession. Well, you avoided a recession on paper, sure, because you brought in millions of people into this country. You grew the population, which grows the GDP. But the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters with negative GDP growth. Well, take a look at Canada's inflation-adjusted real GDP per capita. You have an entire year of per capita GDP decreasing. Canadians getting poorer, quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. You may be increasing the GDP, but quality of life for millions of Canadians has been decreasing. And if you avoid a recession by flooding this country with people who don't seem to be integrating very well, Is it really a success when A, Canadians are getting poorer, and B, our communities are no longer as cohesive as they used to be?
But some saw that as an opportunity to profit, to game the system.
Yeah, the exact people that lobbied you to do this in the first place. Go figure.
We've seen way too many large corporations doing this.
The government says the program has been used to get around hiring Canadian workers in some instances.
Far too many colleges and universities used international students to raise their bottom line.
There are the diploma equivalent of puppy mills that are just churning out diplomas. There is fraud and abuse, and it needs to end.
The fraud and abuse that needs to end, which the Canadian government had nothing to do with, of course. First, they enticed millions of students by telling them they could all stay and become Canadians, eh? Like they said in that video. Secondly, it turns out we now know over 10,000 international students, the number is likely way more than that, but over 10,000 international students came to this country with fraudulent acceptance letters. And the government just let them in. The government is trying to put blame on everybody else except for them. Trying to explain away this disastrous decision by blaming other people, by blaming lobbyists, by blaming greedy CEOs, by blaming the colleges. Of course, they are all to blame, but so is the government. Oh, and Canada knew about these fraudulent acceptance letters for a long time. Many students were slated for deportation back in 2022 and early 2023. But Pierre Poilievre, of all people, the conservative leader, likely the next prime minister, attended one of their rallies, one of their events, these protesting international students with fake acceptance letters, who probably knew they were fake the entire time, were playing the victim. And what did Pierre Poilievre say?
Stop the deportations.
Stop the deportations. Poilievre wanted to keep these frauds in our country. He wanted to defend them. And his reasoning was this.
We have a demographic problem. Our population is too old. We need 700 young people. We need 700 young people to work in our factories, in our hospitals, in our shopping centers, driving truck.
They could charge these students tens of thousands of dollars more for the same degree. And then there are really bad actors who outright exploit people, who target vulnerable immigrants with promises of jobs, diplomas, and easy pathways to citizenship, promises that would never come true. Looking back, when the post-pandemic boom cooled and businesses no longer needed the additional labor help, as a federal team, we could have acted quicker and turned off the taps faster.
Now, it is time to make the adjustments to stabilize the immigration system that we need and get it working right for Canadians for right now.
Immigration is primarily a federal job. We have the levers to rein it in, so we are.
This is a big change, a major cut to immigration. It's reducing permanent immigration levels by at least 20%.
A new string of measures to clamp down on temporary immigrants.
That means a decrease in international students, temporary foreign workers.
Canada's new immigration plan is straightforward. Lower the number of new immigrants coming into Canada, both temporary and permanent.
Isn't it weird that Justin Trudeau, the man who caused this problem to begin with, is more coherent and more straightforward with Canadians about immigration than Pierre Poilievre?
We're prioritizing permanent residents with the skills we need, like healthcare workers for our hospitals and construction workers who will build more homes. And those temporary residents who are already in Canada, some will apply to stay in Canada as permanent residents. Since they're already here, established and working, the added pressure put on communities is very low. Or they'll leave Canada when their temporary residency expires, reducing our population.
Well, there are millions of non-permanent residents in this country right now. And if the government is only going to accept 350,000 permanent residents, it would seem as though we're going to have a lot of people kicked out of the country. No more newcomers into this country if you want to give the temporary residents permanent residency right now. Does anybody really think that's going to happen?
Some temporary residents may turn to our asylum system when their visa expires as a shortcut to stay in Canada. Those claims will be analyzed and processed, and if their claim fails, they'll be sent home.
All of the claims should fail. If you're in Canada as a temporary resident, why are we letting anyone just claim asylum a few weeks before they're supposed to go back home? If you really had an asylum case, you would probably make that immediately upon entering this country. You don't just get to be a foreign student and then, when it's time to leave, actually just claim asylum when you failed your classes or you haven't tried at all, you just claim asylum because you don't want to go back home? All of those people should fail.
Between the amount of people coming and going, we'll effectively pause population growth for the next 2 years.
Justin Trudeau is proposing net zero population growth in this country? What timeline is this? Where did we just end up? This is insane. The Liberals have managed to actually undercut the Conservatives on immigration. After causing the problem, they're now the ones to propose a real solution.
Then from 2027 onwards, it'll balance out and slowly start increasing again at a sustainable pace. In fact, that gets us back to the population growth path we were on before the pandemic.
You can't just stop this train and then pick it up a few years later and pretend as though everything is fine.
This pause is going to give our economy and our communities the chance to catch up with things like our plan to build millions more homes. That's not stopping, but now we'll have a little more breathing room as we build. We'll see more corporations investing in Canadian workers and youth rather than relying on cheap foreign labor. Our cap on international students is already bringing rental prices down in big cities, and as we keep that cap in place, rents will keep coming down.
Wow, look at that. An admission by the Prime Minister of Canada, I think for the first time really, that mass immigration, and particularly the international student system, is directly related to the increase in rents, to the out-of-control housing situation in our country. Immigration and housing are inextricably linked. Pretending as though that is not the case is either dishonesty or stupidity. And Mark Miller never hid away from this as well. In October, he was celebrating the fact that rents have come down in a direct relation to the cutback in net inflows of non-permanent residents. So they're celebrating the fact that by reducing the population in this country, rents are coming down. Which makes me ask the question, what on earth were they thinking bringing these people into the country in the first place if they knew this was the problem? So after instituting a international student cap, rental prices in Canada's major cities have plummeted. Boy, it sure would be awkward if the opposition made an entire documentary about housing and didn't even mention immigration once. Now the Prime Minister is admitting that it is directly related.
We're making the system work for Canadians and for newcomers, rather than for the big box stores, chain restaurants, immigration consultants, and sham colleges that exploit it. Immigration is a great thing, and we're lucky that so many people dream of coming to our country. Fulfilling that dream depends on having a good job, a decent place to live, and health care that you can access when you need it. We have to make sure our population isn't getting out ahead of those things.
So there we go. Canada's new immigration plan, a complete reversal over their announcements, just 6, 7 months ago, 8 months ago. What this country needs to do is actually start deporting people who should be deported from this country. There are potentially up to 500,000 illegals in this country right now. They all need to go. If you are in this country undocumented, you need to leave. You need to be deported from the country. If you are in this country and you file an asylum claim that doesn't get through, you need to be deported. You need to get out of the country. It's that simple. Temporary foreign workers need to be exactly that, temporary. No international student from a sham fake college should be given permanent residency. They all need to go. It's time for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to wake up and smell the coffee. Donald Trump just got elected to the US presidency on a policy of mass deportations. Canadians want the same in our country. It's time to deport people who need to go. The times are changing. Justin Trudeau just advocated for net zero population growth over the next 3 years. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.